Hey folks, this is Kelani. With a few weeks of Battle for Azeroth's initial content under our belts and with some new content just over the horizon, it seems like the perfect time to sit down and have a chat about how everything has been going so far. We currently have access to the Mythic Dungeons, a whole bunch of world quests, and the Island Expeditions. That seems to sum up the vast majority of a lot of players' playtime right now, and I wanted to touch on one of these forms of content specifically. The Island Expeditions were newly introduced in Battle for Azeroth, but they sort of took the scenario system from Mr. Pandaria and gave it a new lick of paint to fit the Battle for Azeroth theme. There's a few differences to be sure, and I think they're a great little adventure to embark upon, which allows you to twist and bend the rules of the typical Holy Trinity. You can hop in with 3 DPS or try your luck with 2 healers and a tank. You can mix and match however you want, which means you don't necessarily have to put someone on the bench just because you have a number of specific slots to fill with specific roles. When they were first unveiled, we were promised open exploration of these varying islands, with randomly generated events, monsters, rewards, and pretty much everything else on the island. Running islands constantly was supposed to provide you with a different experience each time, or at least most of the time. Do you think islands have delivered on those promises? Personally, I'm not too sure they have. So how are islands shaping up so far, and how well do we think they're going to do as we continue through Battle for Azeroth? Let's go ahead and break things down. Let's start with exploration. The islands themselves do vary quite wildly. You can be in a spooky forsaken land with untold horrors around every corner, or you can be chilling on what seems to be an active volcano, or at least it was active at some point recently. The environments are really fantastic when you wander around and really take in the scenery. The dev team did a great job with all of the islands I've played on so far. Not only are the islands quite different from each other, but most islands have little sections where different monsters have taken root. You might find a tribe of murlocs nearer to the shore, but as you work your way inland, you might happen upon some spider-infested ruins, or elementals who seem drawn to different places of power. And then of course everyone's favourite, the stealth tigers, spiders and saurochs, running into what looked like a perfectly safe and readily available chest of azurite, only to be ambushed by all manner of nasty creatures. Thanks for that, Blizzard. While there are quite a few maps available for the expeditions themselves, you're actually locked into a random choice of 3 each week. I'm not sure I'm a fan of locking in a rotation of maps like that. Sure, you get a bit more variance as the weeks go by, but for anyone running quite a few islands per week, which you probably should be if you're interested in keeping up with the amulet's artifact level, things can get pretty samey pretty quickly. If there's only 3 maps available at any given time, the potential variation when combined with the random monsters and events goes down dramatically for any given week. This also creates a few annoyances when achievements are linked to doing various island maps, but we only get 3 at a time. I wonder if this is an attempt to pace the content, sort of like a soft time gate, so we can't blow through and explore every island in a single week. Maybe it's supposed to work in our favour. We only have 3 maps a week that we have to learn and get used to, so it's much easier to farm for that week, or forcing the time gate might free up your time to do other activities. It could also be implemented like this to provide us with a new experience each week, at least until the maps start to cycle round. I'm guessing that most players probably only do islands until their weekly quest is completed and leave them alone until the next week. Coming into some different islands each week is pretty nice, but whatever their rationale or reasoning for putting the maps on a cycle like this, I personally don't like it. Any game that I've played recently which has forced map cycles has put me off a little bit. That's one of the main reasons I stopped playing Heroes of the Storm way back when. It just bothered me that I would be playing the same few maps over and over again, when one of the selling points was the differences in maps and objectives. The same can be said for the Island Expedition system. If the major selling point is replayability, randomly selected islands, randomly generated monsters and events, why would you then restrict that so heavily by only opening up 3 maps at any given time? It just seems like a bit of an odd choice to me. These islands are beautiful, the whole concept works amazingly, but we're only given a small piece of the pie. Hopefully later on down the line we'll see more and more new maps added to the island system. They're set up perfectly for more content later in the expansion. I'm assuming most of the islands are set up in a way to work with plug and play, any new events, rewards, monsters, all that jazz. Anything new that can be added into the system should already work with existing islands perfectly, and when they add in a new island or two, all of the content that can be generated on our islands right now should also fit in really easily with new islands. It really is a perfect foundation to build upon as we explore more of the waters surrounding our islands, but we could run into the same issue as the time walking events. When it was just 1 or 2, you would see each respective event fairly often, but since we've added in almost every past expansion as a time walking event now, The time in between seeing 2 Wrath of the Lich King events is pretty huge right now. If we get to the point where we have so many extra islands, but still only have access to 3 at a time, we might not see certain islands for months at a time. That's going to be really frustrating if certain rewards or achievements are tied to specific islands. So I think the islands are doing a pretty good job of providing us with varied landscapes and environments to explore. I just wish we could play about with more islands at a time, but I wouldn't say that's the largest problem I have with the new system. All of that exploration is fantastic and amazing. But the actual gameplay of islands doesn't encourage it at all. Island expeditions have turned into a race, and pretty much everything else is secondary to winning. You might be thinking, well, yes, Kelani, that's the point of the content, to win. And I would agree with you, winning is definitely important, especially when you get better rewards for winning versus losing. But when your experience boils down to chase the red cross on the map, mine the Azerite, kill the rare, move on to the next red cross, you totally skip over everything else the islands have to offer. Most of the cool events don't happen until later on in the island, and I don't know about you, but I barely see the 10-minute mark in heroic islands anymore. They're done within 7 to 8 minutes most of the time. That's crazy quick, which on one hand is grand, because islands are an incredibly efficient source of Azerite and artifact power. Heroic queues reward 225 artifact power, get that done twice every 15 minutes, and you're looking at a nice chunk of Azerite every hour. Not that I would encourage mindless farming of Azerite or artifact power. I feel like this problem only gets worse as you go from normal to heroic and from heroic to mythic. The islands don't really get harder per se, you just have to go faster. You have to be more efficient with your pathing, you have to kill the rares faster, loot the Azerite faster, and overall just skip over everything else the island might have to offer faster. It really is just a race to the finish line, which ends up being a little disappointing in my opinion. A new type of content which is supposed to be about exploring new islands and little land masses, and all we end up doing is chasing the red crosses around the map. I know there's a large variety of events that can spawn, huge Azerite monsters, the Venture Co. goblins swinging by to try and make a profit, or even portals opening up to different locations entirely. The problem is that if you find an Azerite event, chances are it's either going to finish your island or get you pretty close. You're probably done halfway through a goblin event, and at this point I don't even know if it's worth jumping in any of those portals. I haven't seen any. I know on the beta most of the fun stuff started spawning after 10 minutes, but if you're done after 7, you're never going to see it. There are quests scattered around the islands as well, which are definitely worth doing. If you can see the quest item in your immediate area, the quest items required to complete the quests used to be scattered around the island too, until the dev team changed it to make the islands always spawn relatively close to the quest NPC, because it just wasn't worth scoring the island for the items needed to complete the quests. Right now, if you don't see the item quick enough, you may as well just move on to the next red cross. Maybe you'll see it on your way back sometime. When everything is about speed, you don't really get a chance to stop and admire any of the environments you're supposed to be exploring. When everything is about speed, you're basically just in a mini zerg towards the next mining node or Azerite chest, so you don't even really get a chance to explore. It kind of reminds me a little bit of the champion trains in Guild Wars 2. No one really paid full attention to the game. Half of the players were probably watching something on Netflix while playing Follow the Leader around the map. It would have been nice to see more puzzles or events which reward active exploration and participation, rather than a game of who can kill the most monsters the fastest. Imagine deep caverns or caves with rich Azerite nodes at the bottom, probably guarded by something not so friendly. Maybe even some offshore pirates horde or some other boats docked nearby that you can pillage and plunder. Maybe I'm just hungry for more variety of events in general, but I think part of the problem is how quickly you work your way through the islands. I wonder what would happen if you made the islands take about 15 minutes to complete, but doubled all of the rewards involved. I know there's plenty of people who would hate to see that change, simply because they don't have a lot of time to play as it is. Doubling the time required to complete a single island might seem like a tall order, but at least you would get more out of each island as opposed to just having to run islands over and over again. Would you rather play one island and have a great varied experience, or play through 2 islands and get more or less the same thing each time because you achieve victory before the cool stuff even has a chance to pop up? I think there's a lot of potential here. Each island could be its own little adventure, but right now we're encouraged to rush through it as quickly as possible. Now, the last thing I want to touch on is the rewards you can get from taking part in islands, because there's quite a lot to talk about. You can get mounts, you can get pets, there's weapons and transmog available, you can get reputation tokens and even a special pirate-themed currency in the Seafarer's doubloons. You can get a whole treasure trove of rewards from island expeditions. But you can't actually work towards any of them individually. The only way to obtain any of these rewards that I know of is a simple random chance at the end of each island you complete. That's it. Run a few islands and cross your fingers. I think right now there's 5 different mounts and 28 different pets. And just like adding in new monsters, events, or even new islands, the dev team could cram even more rewards into the island expeditions whenever they wanted. But you only have a random chance at the end of each island to get anything. That seems like an incredibly flawed reward system, especially for content which is supposed to be about exploration. I know I keep coming back to this, but hear me out. Instead of a random chance to get a mount or a pet at the end of each island, wouldn't it be cool if there were special events that could trigger on certain islands to work towards these kind of rewards? That would encourage you to really hunt around the island for anything special. Your environments would suddenly matter a whole lot more. If you want the parrot pet, you have to find the parrot on the island. Maybe rescue the parrot from some hungry murlocs or something. Anything to add a little bit of spice into the whole system and break up the monotony of just smashing your face against the artifact power grind and reward you with something cool at the same time. I would absolutely love if mounts, pets, or other rewards were tied to completing something on the island themselves, but I know randomness is something a lot of us really don't enjoy too much, especially after all the RNG in Legion. If everything about an island is random, that would mean rewarding events would be random too. That could be just as frustrating as the end of island rewards, even if it would be a bit cooler. So what about a vendor? Legion legendaries were a great example of RNG on top of RNG, and I feel like as soon as the vendor was added at the end of the expansion, the entire Legion legendary system felt so much better. Having some form of bad luck protection, in this instance a vendor, to alleviate the frustration could benefit the entire system massively. If you plop certain pets or mounts on a vendor for a hefty Seafarer's doubloon price, not only does it keep with the theme of the islands, plundering booty to get what we need, but it also gives an active goal you can work towards without having to worry about how stupidly lucky you actually need to be to see any of these cool rewards. Right now the reward system only encourages players to speed through the island expeditions faster and faster, because the only way to get something interesting is to finish as many islands as you can, as fast as you can. Everything is working towards that goal right now, and I think it really dilutes the entire experience. Islands could have been really interesting, but I think they're just a huge missed opportunity at the moment. What do you think of the island expeditions so far? Are you getting just enough done for the weekly quest, or are you clearing more each week for a chance at some extra rewards? Leave all your thoughts in the comments section below. A big thank you to all of our supporters over on Patreon. You can see their names floating by on screen. If you want to join these lovely guys and gals, you can find a link in the description below. Remember to leave a like just below the video before you leave, and if you want to see more, make sure to subscribe. But apart from that, thanks for watching folks, good luck and have fun, and as always, I will see you next time.